to the Relentless CEO Podcast. With Adam Kifer. Follow your path to success alongside icons and industry leaders in martial arts, fitness, and more. Let's go. This is the Relentless CEO Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Relentless CEO Podcast. We are here with Matt Stait. Did I say your last name correctly, first of all?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
All right, good. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. You and I connected, I don't even know how long ago, like a year or so ago, whenever TikTok was starting to blow up. And then we couldn't nail down a time. And then I had the 2024 of all 2024s. But I'm glad we finally are able to get you on. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on. It's great to finally actually get to chat. As you say, been aware of each other for a while now.
Yes, and you know that I became aware of you because of TikTok. You were the first person in the martial arts industry that I actually saw making waves in TikTok. And I remember I think you were doing like a self-defense tutorial that came across my feed, and I saw the engagement on it, and I was like, holy crap. I was like, how is there someone in our industry that's doing this well on TikTok already? And then I remember I went to your page and I just saw all of the views and the comments and everything you were getting. And in our industry, I haven't seen anyone else hit that level of just engagement and viewership on TikTok yet. To all my listeners out there, you know by now that I never promote anything on this podcast, and that needs to change because there's a life-changing event coming up that every martial arts school needs to be at, and that's the 2024 Relentless Membership Summit. Every year we throw this event, we invest over $100,000 into bringing you the best speakers on the planet, having some of the best entertainment, and always securing one of the best venues possible. And this year is no different. We're bringing in one speaker that has over $100 million in sales and is the king of creating offers. His name is Jason Fladlian. You may know some of the people he's mentored, like Alex Hormozi and Russell Brunson and numerous other huge names in the marketing world that he has worked with. We have Brady Edwards coming to speak, who is the former video director for Mr. Beast. If you know anything about YouTube, you've heard the name Mr. Beast. He has over 245 million subscribers. And this is the guy that helped him grow his channel, that helped him plan all of those crazy videos. And he's going to be teaching how martial arts schools can get an unfair advantage when it comes to creating content for their schools. We also have industry staples like Dave Kovar, the teacher of teachers, Jody Tension, Kelly Murray, Jonathan Frank. We have Jesse Isaacs, who's a new speaker this year, and Jesse has 5 martial arts schools, multiple of them doing over $100,000 in revenue per month. He's coming to share his secrets of success with you. Guys, this is an event that you want to be at because you want to be around not only the amazing expert speakers we have, but other school owners that are there with the same drive and ambition that you have to grow their school, make a bigger impact, and build a legacy for their family. And for a limited time only, we have early bird tickets available. They're only $97. It is stupid how little we are charging for this event. I've even had people message me and say, Adam, is this the correct price? It is the correct price, but it's only going to be a limited time. So guys, as soon as August 1st is here, it's over. That goes back to regular prices and you're going to be paying 5 times what the rates currently are at. Grab your ticket, relentlesssummit.com. Thank you guys for listening to my quick spiel. Now back onto the podcast. My first question for you is, when did you figure out TikTok was like the thing? And what do you feel like was like the moment that you realized like, oh, I understand this platform?
Okay, well, I'd love to take all credit for everything, but I'm afraid I can't. There was I've mentioned this before, but it's really relevant. So it must have been about 5 years ago now. I was watching YouTube videos, scrolling through, and I came across a Gary V moment where he basically said, TikTok is where you need to be. You know, have a look at it. It's going to be massive. Get on board. So I thought, that's interesting. I'll have a little play. And I was on a business podcast with a friend of mine a few days later where we were talking about other things martial arts related. And I happened to say that I was going to have a look at this TikTok. It sounded interesting. And then anyway, long story short, it was a case of I can't do anything by half. If I'm doing it, I'm doing it. It's one of those. So I spent months and months researching it, looking into it, trying to understand it, following other people, doing everything I could to try and figure out what it was that made it do the things that it did. And then I started sort of pushing that myself. So I didn't do a thing for 3 or 4 months. I didn't put a single video up, which is one of the mistakes a lot of people make. So I didn't do a thing for all that time. And then when I did, I had a game plan. And then it turned out that that game plan worked very well for me. So I went back onto that podcast. This was about several months later, of the same guy. And you can find this if you like. I think it was called Bulletproof Podcast with a guy called Jamie Keelan over in the UK. And you can find both podcasts if you like and actually timeline it. Because on that second one, I'd actually built a following of a few 100,000 in that space of time. I'd had millions upon millions of views. I'd started really getting traction with that. And so we made a little bet, him and I. And so within several weeks, he got himself up to 50, 60,000 using my principles.
Wow.
And, had built a following and what have you. So it was like, okay, we've got something here, there's something that's tangible. And one of the mistakes that people make is, especially then, is that they think they have to twerk or lip sync or act 20 when they're 45,
Yeah.
And that's not actually the case. So it was really interesting to be able to look at the mechanics of it and try and figure it out from that point of view.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I was getting ready to delete my twerking videos on TikTok. I was like, ah, crap, wrong strategy. So for you, when you started to build this audience, did you find that it was the audience that you were wanting to have follow you, or at first were you just sort of taking what you can get as far as audience and then niching down later?
No, I've gone in there right from the word go to just be specific and be who I am. Let's be honest, I'm a man of a certain age. I look far better with clothes on these days. So that side of things wasn't going to work for me. I wasn't going to resonate with 20-year-olds trying to be 20. That's just cringy, And so it was a case of, right, I've got to just be me, because apart from anything else, if you try and be something else, it's exhausting and you get found out. So it was right. I'm just going to do what I do. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to try and approach it from a knowledge base, from a point of view of, I'm going to be teaching some things, be explaining some things, be showing some of the things, good and bad, by the way, not just from point of view of I'm brilliant, watch me, because that's another mistake people make, but from a point of view of, you're not the only one that feels this way. If you're in your 40s or 50s and you're still training martial arts, I'm pretty sure you feel battered. I'm pretty sure you've got injuries. I'm pretty sure that some days it hurts just to walk, and I can relate to that because that's me too, and so that's the kind of things that I would talk about and I would express. And you had everything from people that have never done any kind of physical thing before, thinking this is great, I can have a go, and coming in at that level, right through to fellow instructors and gym owners that are like, do you know what, that resonates with me because you're saying the things that we're feeling. So that was the plan from the start, was just to actually be me. And it was great that it got the traction that it did. So yeah, I mean, that's all I ever tell anybody is just you've got to figure out how to be yourself. And I hate the word authentic because it's so overused these days, but it really is a truism in the sense that, if you're not being who you actually are, it shows, and people don't connect to that.
Now, I know with platforms, like I'm super familiar with Facebook, probably more than any other platform since I've been doing it like forever. Everyone gets confused by algorithms on all these different platforms. What are some things that you've learned about the TikTok algorithm specifically that's helped you to see more success on that platform?
So there's lots of behind the scenes stuff that I use, and that's obviously developed over the years going forward. But essentially, one of the most important things about TikTok is that it's very, very, very clever at knowing what it is you want to watch, right? So when I go to a room of business people and I sit down and some guy says to me, oh, it's just full of teenagers wearing next to nothing twerking, I'm like, well, stop watching it.
Yeah.
Because they'll show you what you watch, right? It's that simple. So that was the first and most fundamental thing, was actually there's this amazing world of knowledge out there. There's this amazing world of information and people being very successful, showcasing really positive, wonderful things. If you look, if you find it. And so that was one of the first sort of major revelations, was that actually there is a hunger for that in TikTok, just the same as there is in the whole, in the world at large. The second thing was that when I moved into TikTok, it was really like the Wild West.
Yes.
It was a huge land grab. It's different a little bit now, but there's still lots of opportunity. But back then, it really was a land grab. And as long as you could position yourself and library your content in a way that TikTok could make sense of it and present it to the right people, then all you had to do was not be boring. That's it. That was that's your job. Don't be
Yep.
boring. Give a bit of value and it will do the rest for you. It's just building that trust with the platform. So it has to understand what you're doing and what you're putting out to the world and who it is you're trying to connect with. And if you do that correctly, it will do the rest, especially if you're consistent.
Interesting. And it's funny the what you just said about stop watching it and it'll stop showing up, because
Yeah.
when TikTok first came out, I joined like this guy created like a TikTok like online group to teach people how to like grow their profiles or whatever. And I remember there was someone in the group that posted like, "Hey, how come my entire feed is like full of like young women shaking their butts and thongs and stuff?" And then like
Yeah.
at that point, you can tell this was the new guy in the group. Everyone's like, "Stop watching those videos; they'll stop showing up in your feed," type of thing. So that makes total sense.
Mm.
And one of the things that I did, which is probably incorrect, is when I first found out about TikTok, I created my account, of course, and then I was just so overwhelmed by another platform that I didn't do anything except consume content on there so I could learn it. And then I almost feel like I started too late. If someone's listening to this and they don't have a TikTok account right now, does it make any difference if they start posting right away or if they wait a while before they start posting, as far as how the algorithm's going to react to their account?
So there's theories on this. Now, the way that I see it and the way that it's sort of panned out from the data collected over years and working with clients and things is that um, all the platforms, not just TikTok, all the platforms, they pigeonhole you into people that they think are good creators or mediocre or really rubbish and not worth sharing. And your job is to convince them that you're a top shelf product, right? Because eyes on is what they want. They want your time. They want you staying on their platform. So in the same way that you've got the real estate on the end of a shelf in a supermarket, which is where they work hard as to what products go there. TikTok, the For You page is exactly the same. So it needs to understand that what you're doing is quality
Mm.
and it's of good enough content. And as I mentioned earlier, it's consistent. You give what you promise. All of these things in the same way that you would build a human relationship. It's the same deal. So you have to make sure that you're explaining what your videos are and hashtagging correctly. You have to make sure that your visuals are correct, they're representative. You need to make sure that you're within your area or niche. If you want to be fireworking off in all directions, that's fine too, but you just need to let them know that's what's happening. Because if you make 200 videos on hairdressing and then suddenly start talking about I don't know, how to grow things in your garden, then it's going to confuse them. They won't know what to do with you. So essentially, the main thing is not to just dive in straight away, because when people do that, what they tend to do is they use this scattergun thing and they just throw
Yep.
things at the wall, hoping that something will stick. And all that does is confuses TikTok and lets them think that actually you're not worth sharing out to the world, because again, it goes in circles, right? So as with most things, they send it out to a test audience. And if that test audience like it, interact with it, then it'll go out to more. And then then it goes through another circle and so on and so on, right? And the only way you go viral is by going through all of these circles and it being sent out to more and more people. But what tends to happen, especially at the beginning, if people don't get this correct, is they rush out to make content. They make content that they don't really know how to present properly, and it's all over the place. And so TikTok doesn't know who to share it to. And so they end up sharing it to the wrong people who, of course, don't interact. And then it dies a death. And if you do that for a few videos, it doesn't take long for TikTok to think, actually, these guys, they're not really worth the shelf space. We're not going to bother sharing them. So you lose all that organic reach that you're trying to work so hard for. So really important, again, that I think that people understand that it's better to spend a bit of time planning, doing some homework, researching your niche, researching other people that are in your space on the platforms. If you look at martial arts as an example, right, it's a broad church.
Sure.
Okay, there's all different flavors, there's all different takes, there's all different experiences you can have from that, right? Now, you know yourself that because there's so many different flavors of that, if I do a martial arts video, 90% of martial artists aren't going to care because it's not in their wheelhouse.
Yep.
And out of that 10% that do care, another 90% of those are going to say, actually, well, we do it differently. I mean, that's the joys of martial arts, isn't it?
Sure.
So what you need to do is you need to basically speak to your crowd, find your crowd, and then get TikTok to understand your crowd so that that's where they send things. And that way, then you get that interaction a lot quicker. Harder to do now than it used to be, but it's still really the way that these things work. So it still has to be done.
So just to summarize, sort of what you're saying is the content is probably one of the most important parts to actually finding the right people and making sure TikTok is showing it to them. Is there anything else you're doing? Like, I know TikTok's version of boosting is promoting. Do you ever promote any of your videos to help put them in front of the right audience, or are you just doing all organic?
So I've always done nothing but organic on TikTok.
Okay.
I've never spent a penny on it, and I never encourage my clients to spend a penny on it. And the reason I do that, and I'm sorry, TikTok, if you're listening, is that at the moment there's just no need. It's
Sure.
throwing money away. With a few basic skills, you can grow organically, and you can grow quite substantially organically. So like with everything, there's that toss up between time and money. So if you're on Facebook and you want to drive traffic to your martial arts place or your online courses or your books, whatever, great. Facebook ads all day long. Organic will really help to push those out. But paid is fine, right? When you look at TikTok, it's not really a paid platform in the same way, and people don't look at that in the same way. It's really peculiar because at the moment TikTok is really pushing hard on affiliate marketing, TikTok Shop itself, so selling through the platform. But the consumers, the people that watch TikToks, they're still not particularly comfortable knowing that things are paid. So if it's an affiliate ad like that, that's different. They're okay with that. They've sort of grown up with it. So yeah, I don't use paid at all, and I don't recommend that for other people. If somebody wants to and they want to try and shortcut, then they can try it. But what you'll find is that will get you so far. But then once you stop paying, doors start closing. And so you end up back to square one. It just takes a bit of time.
Okay, that makes total sense. And I know a lot of times when I'm talking to martial arts school owners about social media platforms, a lot of them are like, I can barely do Facebook consistently. Now you want me to add like another thing. And then I think they get stuck in what content to create, because I think a lot of them maybe aren't as comfortable in front of a camera, or just maybe their creative side is on the martial arts side and not on this content creation. So for martial arts school owners, what are some content recommendations you would give them of like, hey, this is great type of videos to make to really help grow your channel and bring awareness to it?
Can I actually start from a different perspective?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is
You're the
what
expert.
not to do.
Yes.
So this is something that I see all the time, and it drives me potty, right? What I see is incredibly well-skilled martial artists, successful business owners with very good gyms that have large memberships, and they're extremely good at all of those things, right? But what they do is they go onto TikTok and they basically just show off. So they do this fantastic thing, right? And you and I can look at it and we can say, that's amazing. That's taken years. That's a lot of practice has gone into that. That's a very skillful thing that you're showing, right? However, the world of social media doesn't care about that. Its main question is, what can you do for me?
Sure.
Right. And if that is something that you don't answer with your content, then it's going to fall flat on its face. And so I see that all of the time. Very successful people not doing very well at all because that's the platform that they're coming on. So instead of that, the idea is to think about it as to what can you bring to the table? What can you add? What value can you give that's you and you alone? And everybody has that. So from a martial arts standpoint, every single instructor, regardless of skill level, knowledge, capability, style, they all teach in a specific individual way. Now that will resonate with some people and it won't with others. And that's not
Sure.
style specific, that's how we just are.
Personality driven.
That's right. Yeah, that's how we are as human beings. And so if you have a situation where you're thinking, well, what can I do content wise? Well, you can basically work your way through all the different types of content, and you can have, your documentation, you can have your teaching moments, you can have your positivity things. You can, that's not a hard thing to find. And then it's just a case of putting those things together. So, yourself as an experienced content creator, you've now got into that mindset where you're looking at just about everything you do in life from a content point of view. And there's always moments where there's content. There's always content to be found, right? But essentially, just starting out, what I would say is that treat the platform like you would a class. And if you've got nothing else, teach a class, teach a portion of a class, teach a micro lesson, take one thing out of one thing. So if you think about a straight cross punch, right? Think about all the different elements of that punch that you can break down and you can put into bite-sized chunks. And you can say, well, I can definitely, talk for a minute on this one particular aspect, whether that's, alignment, whether that's what knuckles to hit with, whether that's timing, distance, angles. I mean, you know yourself, the list goes on.
Sure.
So straight away, just on that one thing, you've already got now, hopefully 20 pieces of content you can talk about, and then just replicate that with every technique, work through your syllabus. And if that doesn't give you 2 or 3 months worth of content, then I don't know what to say. Your syllabus isn't very big.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. And I think for school owners, I think that can be one of the most natural ways of them developing content.
Yeah.
There's a school in Costa Mesa, California called the Art of Jiu-Jitsu. And first time I saw them was on Instagram, actually, and they're these beautiful produced videos, but they're all like tutorial based and teaching. And I went and visited them. And I thought it was so cool because anytime the professor brought the class around to teach a technique, there was a guy sitting there with a camera right in front of the students recording it. And that's how they were creating content. They were just pulling it directly from classes. I was like, it's like such a streamlined and easy way to create content because you're already teaching anyway. Might as well just add a camera to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of real bonuses to that, right? A lot of people say to me, I don't have the confidence to be on camera, right? I struggle with confidence to be on camera. And I'm like, well, okay, I understand that you don't have confidence in that arena, but do you teach? And of course they say yes. And I say, do you teach to a group of people, different, walks of life, different ages, different, and usually they're yes. And I'm like, are you confident when you do that? And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay, film that.
I love that.
Because it's a very easy in, because you're already confident. It's already in your home space. You're already doing what you love. And as you mentioned there, if all you need to do is you just prop a camera up on a shelf or stick it on a very cheap stand and you just film those teachable moments. That's it. That's a great in and a great way to start.
So question for you. I'd love to get your take on this because I dealt with this like the first 6 months of this year pretty much. And a lot of times with our own clients, when they start getting traction on views and things, comments start coming in. And as you know, not all of them are positive. They get a lot of negative comments, just like commenting on technique from keyboard warriors and all that stuff. So how are you staying above the comments mentally to make sure that you don't just want to like jump in there and start like typing away at people?
Well, I've got a huge advantage, right? And that advantage is I spent many, many, many years working as a nightclub bouncer and bodyguard, right? So I worked on all kinds of doors in big city center nightclubs and things. And it's very rare that I hear something I haven't heard before, So I've been abused verbally for many, many years by some very good people at it, So the occasional troll online really doesn't even sink in. But if it is something that upsets you, if it is something that makes you makes you question what you're doing. Because again, that's a real fear for some people, is the
Sure.
trolling and the fact that the people are going to come at them, right? So, I mean, my real answer to that, and this is, again, is how I would frame it, right? And that is that if somebody is saying things about me in a negative sense without knowing me, without understanding me, without even knowing what that is in context, because bear in mind, most of the videos you see online that are lambasting other instructors normally are taken out of context, or they're a clip of a much wider thing, right? So it looks different to what it actually represents. So in that case, number one, you can say, well, all right, whatever it is they're feeding the algorithms, they're
Yeah.
helping push me out. Every time that they're writing their little comments, in the back of that, my video is gathering watch time as it clicks round. So, if it takes them 20 minutes to spell, Matt, you're a big fat whatever, that's great. That's 20 minutes more watch time I'm getting. So
Agreed.
from that point of view, amazing, right? From a secondary point of view, if somebody's got nothing better to do with their life than go online and write negative things to strangers, then I just feel sorry for them, because honestly, what kind of a life is that? As far as I'm
Sure.
concerned, they're the ones having a terrible time of it, because if they were enjoying life, if they were doing positive things, if they were making the best of what they have themselves, they wouldn't have time to write nonsense on Facebook or
Yep.
TikTok.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's funny, like I learned a lot about that through everything I went through at the beginning of this year. And I think part of it too is what you attach your self-worth to. If you're putting your self-worth on the opinions of others and how people like you, like it's gonna be really hard for you to read those comments or even see like bad things being said about you. I see it the same way as you. I was like, negative comments, I'm like, you're feeding the algorithm, like go for it. keep commenting away on that side. I also want to ask you too, because I know a lot of times when we see business owners start new social platforms, they're really gung-ho at the beginning, and then I think some of them have unreal expectations of, oh, I should be getting views faster, or I should be getting more comments, and so on. How long do you wait before you say, you know what, this strategy isn't working? I'm not seeing the growth or the results I thought I would, and I need to pivot or think of a different idea.
Okay, so one of the things that I use to disqualify or pre-qualify is people that want to work with me is I say, what's your timeline? And if they say to me, now, I need it now, I need clients now, I say, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person for you. It's a long game.
Sure.
It's always a long game. So you can have a 3-month strategy, a 6-month strategy, 12-month, whatever, that's fine. But you are not going to start on a new platform and instantly overnight gain hundreds of thousands, millions of followers and views. There are exceptions to that rule, just as there are with everything, but the
Sure.
odds of that being you are very, very slim, especially if you're over 25 and you're not built like you should be a model. So realistically, it's a longer game. And so you can look at a strategy for the longer term, and it's compounding, right? You're always looking to keep pushing that boulder up the hill, because one day it hits the peak and it starts coming down the other side. And that's when life gets a lot more fun. But you've got to get it up there first. The same with everything, isn't it? Again, you know this. There isn't a single thing worth having in life that you didn't have to push that boulder uphill metaphorically for a while.
Sure.
Whether it be training, whether it be teaching, whether it be running a club, all of these things you have to work at. So with social media, you can have a strategy, but you've got to look at that as a longer term plan. Now, you can set goals, of course you can. So with TikTok as an example, 1,000 followers is your first target. That's your first gateway, and that's the first time that it allows you to go live, right? So going live basically means that you can speak to the whole of TikTok in that moment from your phone. So it's a very powerful tool if you know how to use it, and lots of people use that to very great effect. So your first call is, right, I want to make 1,000 followers. So I can put a timeline on that, because obviously, you want to be able to say, I'm getting somewhere, I'm getting nowhere.
Yep.
But again, it wants to be realistic. So if you're saying, I'm going to put one video up a week, I'm not going to answer anybody's comments, and I'm just going to sort of sit back and wait for the universe to drop it in my lap, good luck with that. It's going to take a while. If, however, you say, I'm going to be committed to the process, I'm going to spend a few weeks researching and doing my homework so that when I launch, I'm ready to launch and I've got great quality content and I'm bringing lots of value into the space. If you say that and you start from that and you interact and you come at it from the right angle, which is, it's not a broadcast, it's a conversation. If you come at it with that point of view and you're willing to put the work in, then obviously that's going to happen for you a lot quicker. So if you're in a position where you're sort of 6 months down the line and you're still not getting anywhere, well, that's when you've got to really look at what your content is and whether it's something that you should be pivoting into something else, whether it's resonating, whether what you're actually putting out into the world is done in quite the right way. So you adjust as you go. That's one of the things. So when you're working with somebody, you've got your initial launch, you've got your initial batch of content that goes out, you've got your daily drip feed of 2, 5, 8, however many pieces of content you're going to do. And then once you've had a week or so of that going into the algorithms and into the platforms, well, then you start looking at the data, then you start crunching the numbers, then you start asking, how many people are interacting, what time, where from, how, at what points, what are they interacting with, and my hooks need to be better, do my call to actions, do my questions need to be better questions, am I genuinely addressing the pain points of my community, am I really answering these questions or starting these conversations in the right way? And so you can do that week on week. And again, just with everything else, you've got to measure.
Yeah. How important do you feel like the initial first sentence you speak in the video is to the success of the video?
The hook is critical, even more so these days. Yeah, we used to live in a world where people were polite, and I'm gonna explain what I mean. So we used to live in a world where we were polite, and people would stop and listen if you started talking to them because they didn't want to be rude, they didn't want to be seen as unpleasant, so they would give you that opportunity. Whereas now everyone's far too busy, nobody cares, and people will literally just blank you and keep on moving. And so in the TikTok space and short form video, whatever platform, the scroll, the endless scroll. So stopping the scroll is your first job. That's your number one thing. So that's where your hook comes into play. Now, a hook is basically a promise or a question or something that gets people interested, right?
Sure.
Then you have to fulfill that promise. So again, what you can't do is have as a hook something like, oh, here are the 10 ways to make 20 million pounds overnight. And then your video doesn't actually give that.
Yep.
All that does is annoy people. So again, it's a false promise. You're offering things that you can't follow through on. So the call to action needs to be something at the end of all of that representative. So that can be a question, that can be give us a follow, give us a like, join the club, follow over there to my subscription group. Any number of different things. Now, one of the tactics a lot of people use is they'll use questions in that. So they'll end the video by asking, what's your favorite, tip on this, or what do you do, or what have you seen, or what's happened to you? Because it stimulates that conversation. It stimulates people, commenting, which is obviously what you're after. So you want your hook, which is really, really important. You want your main body, which has got to deliver on that promise, whatever the promise is. Sure. And then you've got your call to action in whatever guise that might be.
And then what are some of the metrics you're looking at to judge the success of the video? Because I know when you look at some of the data from TikTok, I know they'll show you the average watch time of the video, total watch time combined of everything. And then you have your typical other social media stats as views, comments, likes, all that stuff. What are you looking at specifically to determine the success of a piece of content you put out?
So obviously there's all kinds of software that you can invest in if you really want to go down that pathway and follow down that route. But TikTok itself is actually pretty good in the back end, much better than some of the other platforms with regards to what you can look at. So that's enough for most people. So obviously you're looking at the usual stuff, the same as everything else. You're looking at watch time. How long are people watching? How much are they staying involved? Are they binge watching? So are they going from one video to another? Okay, are they watching that same video in a loop over and over? Okay, so looping is a technique where you disguise the ending with the beginning, and so people don't actually realize they're watching it over and over. And quite often, people would have gone through it like 4 or 5 times before they're like, okay, right, I see.
Where they ended it and that's why, and then it starts right back at the beginning.
Yeah, so that's a technique. That's a technique to encourage watch time, right? So watch time is something that's really important. That's across the platforms, right? So wherever you are, that counts. But then you're also looking at interactions as well. So there needs to be an interaction because, again, if nobody is interacting, then it means that it's not that interesting, which means that you're going to struggle to have it shared. Excuse me. It's the shares, it's the comments, it's that interaction that creates virality. So you would never have a viral video that's never been shared.
Mm. Yeah, that makes
So,
sense. And
mm,
and one of the things that I'm seeing on just our channel specifically is like we have a pretty low, at least I consider low view count on a lot of them, anywhere from like 200 to 400 views. But then like one will pop off and get 50,000. And then I'm like, all right, we're getting some momentum. And the next one's like back to 400 again. How do you maximize like just the success of the content that is getting good metrics and things, or how do you replicate that and keep it consistent through across your channel so it's not just like bloop and then back down here for the majority of
yeah,
the time?
that's actually a really good question, and it's a really good question because a lot of people they say I want to go viral on TikTok or I
Mhm.
want to go viral, but they've got no way of catching it. So it's like fishing without a net, right? And so any success that you have is gone. I mean, if you look at the moment at the young lady, to a girl,
Oh yeah, yeah,
she's
she's
very very
going
big.
crazy viral.
Yeah, exactly. Went absolutely crazy viral, but caught everyone off guard. And I've been following this really sort of religiously because it's for me it's fascinating. So they got caught completely off guard, and it turned out that the people that were quick off the mark to monetize that and start doing merch and t-shirts and stuff that had nothing to do with the actual girl herself,
Mhm.
they started making a few quid. She's finally caught up now, and they've got their own brands, and she's doing personal
Sign a
appearances and
management
things.
deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So she's catching up now, but that wave, she lost the first couple of days of it. And so she's a really great example of that virality and being able to harness it in the moment. So what you're really looking at is you want to make sure that your profile overall is made so that people will want to come into your ecosystem, right? So they don't just come in and then disappear again. Yeah, that's the
Yep.
fundamental key to this. What you're looking at is staggered. So if you have a viral video, right, your views, your watch time, it goes like this, and then it troughs.
Mhm.
Okay. So what you aim to do is when it troughs, which it will, it can't be helped, is it doesn't tank as far as it did the last time. So it's incrementally peaks and troughs, but those peaks and troughs are going higher each time. And so you're building on it each time. Right. That's the
Got it.
strategic, sensible way to do it. So, as I mentioned, what you need to do is to set up your platforms in a way where you can keep the fish that you catch, right? You give them a reason to stay. So I
Mhm.
always say to people, whenever you set up a new TikTok account, you don't just put one video on because the odds aren't in your favor. But if that pops off, what else have you got?
Yeah, nothing else to
So
watch.
exactly. So you want a video where people can say, "Hey, I enjoyed that. That was interesting. What else have they got?" And then obviously you want them to be able to see a couple of things, start to build a relationship, start to build that know, like, trust, and have a reason to come back. And so that's the other thing is making sure that you're consistent with what you're putting up. So there's a reason to come back. Because again, as you'll know yourself, you'll watch a show or you'll watch something or you'll follow somebody on social media, whatever that may be. You do it because you want to know what comes next.
Yes.
And it's the same deal.
Is there a suggested cadence to posting that you have found works the best? Like, for example, we're doing just one a day pretty much right now. What have you seen that is like the best cadence for that?
Again, it depends on what you're willing to do. So I always say the best level of content is the level of content that you can realistically manage over time.
Sure.
Because what you say, I think you touched on this earlier on. What happens is people rush onto the platform. They start doing 10 pieces of content every day for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then they fizzle out, and then they drop off the planet, and then maybe they stick one up every couple of weeks, and then they moan that it didn't work. So
Yeah.
realistically, that's not the way it should be done. So what you do is you set out your stall right at the start. Remember I said it's making friends and building trust with the platforms. So if I can only do one a day or one a week, right? If it's longer form, so if it's like YouTube, If I can only do one a day or one a week, then that's what I start with and that's what I carry on with, because that's what I can manage. And that's the
Got it.
important thing, is making sure you're consistent. Now, I would say as a minimum twice a day, if I'm being absolutely honest. For any
Okay,
kind of
great.
growth, I would say a minimum of twice a day. If you really want to grow, if you really want to get going, then I would say 8 to 10 a day. Now, that sounds a lot, but when you think 30 seconds to a minute, 10 a day, that's 10 minutes of your time. 15 minutes if you've got to do a little bit of editing. So, 15 minutes a day for something that could absolutely change your world and change your situation financially and all sorts of things, for something that can be that powerful as an asset to you. 15 minutes a day really isn't, I don't think, much of an
Yeah.
investment over time. So yeah, if you're looking at somebody like Gary Vee these days, he's saying you need to be doing 15 to 20 pieces of content every day, but he's a machine. He's got a team. He posts
Yes.
everything. Most of us aren't there.
So you mentioned 30 seconds to a minute. Is that sort of the ideal time? Because I've heard so many conflicting of like, keep it under a minute. Then it's like, all right, now longer form content is actually working really well on TikTok. What are you seeing as far as the actual time of the content?
Yeah, again, it depends on what you're doing and your style and everything else. Because if you look at the way TikTok is working at the moment, and I'm a big believer in making sure that you understand what the platform wants, right? So, as an example, TikTok is pushing longer form content. So it's changed its creator program. So that's basically where they pay you to make content, right?
Okay.
So it used to be that they would pay you regardless of length of video, as long as it had enough views. Now you have to be doing content over a minute in length for that to be able to be monetized in the creator program.
Got it.
So they're pushing longer content. They're also pushing, as I mentioned, they're pushing their shop and their affiliate shops. So they're pushing content with links within that content,
Okay.
because TikTok has an outcome that may not be yours, and their outcome is the thing that you've got to adhere to and you've got to be guided by, because that's the machine, right? So you're in a car, it's traveling in that direction. If you want to go in a different direction, then that's fine, but the car's still going to go that way. Why fight it? So
Yeah.
go with it, right? Now, if you go over onto YouTube shorts at the minute, they're only 60 seconds long. You can't go above that, right? Because they're trying to get you doing short form content, and that's what they're promoting, because they want to be seen as a competitor to TikTok. And this is great, because especially in the short form video space, because we've now got Insta, we've got Facebook Reels, we've got YouTube Shorts, we've got TikTok. We can make one piece of content and drop it in all of those platforms, and they'll all fight amongst themselves to share it the most. Which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at now, and that's the environment that we're in with short form video content. It's the most shared type of content.
Yep.
It's out there in the world, growing at such a rate, it's unbelievable. Right? All the platforms are squabbling over your attention to use that type of content. So for us at the moment, it's such an easy thing to leverage with just a tiny understanding of what to do.
Yeah, and I think our industry underutilizes short form video like massively. I was at the Traffic and Conversion Summit last year, and they pretty much surveyed all the marketers there to see, hey, what are the top 5 things that you think are going to be the biggest splashes in marketing over the next 5 years? Short form video content was number 1, like across the board of what everyone voted. So I definitely feel like our industry needs to place more importance on doing short form video. I just think they're business owners and they're just doing 97 different things, and because it's not getting them results today, they don't see the importance of that long-term play of doing the daily content and building that audience up over time. Do you see any difference? Because right now we use like different software to schedule posts in advance. Is there any difference in creating the content within the TikTok platform as to having a video editor, chop it all up, do all of that, and then post it from a third party?
There used to be a significant difference, or it appeared that way. And it used to be that if you shot directly through the TikTok app, it would be shared quicker and wider because it had less hoops to jump through in regards to copyright infringement, all that kind of thing, right?
Makes
So
sense.
yeah, that used to be the case. It doesn't seem to be the case as much now. However, I still tend to find and this is just my version of this, but other people might differ. But I still tend to find that the platforms, they look on staggered content that is done through a third-party app less favorably, because they're aware that it's staggered. They're aware that it's put through at a certain time, and so it doesn't have that. Especially with TikTok, it doesn't have that TikTok vibe of being raw and in the moment and real, And so, so I think obviously for most people, having an ability to set their content up and have it come out at a scheduled timetable is great and the obvious way forward to do it. But I think having the ability as well and honing the instinct and the skills to just go, this is a really good piece of content. I can do this flat in a minute and I can have that up. To be able to do that and get those in as well. Pepper everything with as much as you can in that way. You just said something that I wanted to come back on, and I've sort of lost track of what that was, unfortunately.
Let's see. So we just asked, my brain just went with you. Hey, there we go.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
We were just talking about TikTok and third-party platforms posting from that as opposed to going directly through. And then before that, I was talking about how school owners.
Oh, that's right. Yes, no,
yeah.
That's right. Thank you. So
it took me a while to go back.
Yeah. No, what I was going to say, and this is a really interesting little thing to do, because again, I speak to all kinds of different businesses, right? I don't just work with martial artists. I purposely, I'm a member of a couple of institutes and things over in the UK, and I purposely outsource a lot of my marketing information because, as you know yourself, the martial arts world can be a little bit insular sometimes. So the idea is pull it back in right now. So what I say to people is go to your audience. So if you run a school, right, ask your students, ask them what platforms they're on and they're using, right? Ask the parents. Because even though you don't see the parents on TikTok posting content, I guarantee you an awful lot of them will be on there consuming content. And that is one of the really interesting things about TikTok is how it's used by people. There's so many people on there that you don't think are on there. Because they're not posting content, but they are. And the other thing is, when I mentioned where it's so shareable, that's the other thing to consider, because it's such an incredibly shareable way to get information out into the world. Even if you're not on TikTok, you will have seen a TikTok. Even LinkedIn is full of TikToks.
And you have that one friend that's sending you like every TikTok meme, even if you're not on the platform. So you eventually just join them regardless. The other question I wanted to ask you on, is one of the things actually that appeals to me a lot about TikTok is how well it shows up in Google searches. I actually feel like the content created on TikTok shows up better than Facebook, and much better than Facebook and Instagram content in Google searches. Have you seen anything work really well as far as making videos more searchable or showing up higher in the search? Do you know of anything that you can do on TikTok with the videos to help them be more searchable on Google?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, and I'm sure everybody does now, but for those that don't know, YouTube is the second most used search platform. So if it's how to do that, if it's how does that work, if it's what makes that tick, right? That's where people are going. But that's boomerland, right? That's the older generation. The younger generation, they're doing that exact thing, but they're doing it on TikTok. And it's quite fascinating to see, because now TikTok is becoming a how-to platform as well. People are searching those hashtags. They're looking for answers to questions. How do I do that? How does that happen? And of course, that plays in really, really well with Google overall, because that's what that's what they do.
Yeah. And are you with the sort of AI revolution we're experiencing right now? Are you using any AI when it comes to your content creation or doing anything with TikTok? Like, for example, we use Opus Pro a lot for like chopping up the podcast and creating clips. Are you using any type of AI with what you're doing?
So first, I have to say I've seen The Terminator, and to the AI gods, I think you're wonderful. Right, I just want to get that out there for the future.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that obviously it's such a revolutionary thing and it's moving so quickly that we have to incorporate it. You can't not. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
bit like saying somebody's invented the car, but I'm still going to walk because I'm stubborn. Um,
Yeah.
we're in the world. So yes, I do use it, but I don't use it to generate content for me personally at the moment. I know a lot of people are doing that, but for me, it's a time thing. So I use it to cut down on time in
Yeah.
so many ways. It's really, really good for that. So, and I also use it a lot for repurposing longer form content. So I've got, lots and lots of online courses and your longer YouTube videos, that sort of thing. And it's really, really good for pulling out, short clips and stuff from that. So I tend to use it for all that sort of thing. Obviously, with the latest iterations of it, it's getting so complex now and so clever that I think that it won't be long before it's just going to be embedded into everything to do with marketing and social media. I can't see
Yeah,
otherwise.
I agree. And
Mm.
for myself, whenever there's like a clouded area of information that I don't know, like TikTok is a great example. I always try and seek out experts like yourself to be able to just be like, hey, let me give you money and you give me knowledge and let's figure out how to make this thing work. For any listeners that are like, man, Matt knows his stuff. I suck at TikTok. I don't even know where to start. What are some ways that they can connect with you or work with you to just help give them some direction on this platform?
Okay, well, the easiest thing to do is you can find the sort of professional persona of me on LinkedIn or Facebook or anything like that under Matt Stait. You can see it written there, STAIT. Or the company itself is Different Think. You can find me on TikTok itself under Modern Samurai Online. So if you want to look on there, that's on YouTube, and that's the sort of martial arts side of things that I do. So any of those will find me, and that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, come and say hello. Always happy to talk to people and get involved.
And where do you I guess last question I can think of is where do you feel like the future of TikTok is going? Because I know in the US there's been lots of talks of TikTok, is it going to be banned? Is it not going to be banned? I personally don't think it's going to be banned. But where do you sort of see the future of TikTok going?
Well, even if it is banned, it's not going to be banned for a while. My understanding is it was given 9 months to enforce a sale. And then if a sale was imminent, it was going to be given another 3 month extension. So you're looking at a year down the line. You can do an awful lot in a year. You can
Sure.
build an incredible community within a year. And even if you can't build a community, you can certainly learn a lot of skills within a year. So I think I think from that point of view, we can't look at it from what may happen because they've been
Mhm.
threatening this over there since 2020.
Yes.
So that's a lot of years where you could have been really amassing a great asset behind you with TikTok, the platform. But more importantly, as I mentioned earlier and alluded to, it's not just TikTok now. Facebook, Instagram, Shorts, they're all trying to get a slice of that pie. So whatever you do on TikTok, you can map over. You can repurpose that. You can put it over on there, and those skills are transferable as well. So don't look at it from just a TikTok point of view. Look at it from a short form content point of view, because I guarantee you, if something happens to TikTok, which it may or may not,
Yep.
but if it does disappear from certain countries, there will be something to take its place. Nature hates a
Yep.
vacuum. And whatever comes next, you're going to be ready for. Boom, you're going to hit the ground running. Those people, they're going to want the next thing. They're going to want to stay with you. So you're not going to lose like that, right? But I truly sort of believe at the moment that the way TikTok has expanded, and because all the other platforms have acknowledged it and become so frightened of it and are trying to replicate it, I think TikTok is just going from strength to strength, really. It is at the moment the number one place for creators to monetize, to generate an income from what they're doing. And that is an attractive quality by itself for a lot of people. It's still a great place to grow. It's, if your audience is under 40 years of age, then they're almost certainly on TikTok,
Yep.
or people that influence them are on TikTok. So it's something that you can't really ignore. And the way that it's expanding at the moment, I can't see that slowing down, to be honest.
It was interesting. We have my wife and I went to go see this comedian that we had never heard of before. And this was I think 2 years ago. And at our annual event that we do here in the US, we always have a cocktail party with a stand-up comedian at it. So this young kid we go and see, his name's Matt Rife. And we go and I meet with him afterwards, and I was like, hey, do you do events or anything like that? He's like, yeah. And I look him up on TikTok, and he's got 500,000 followers at the time. And I was like, all right, he's doing pretty good. And we paid him $5,000 to perform at our event. And by the time it got to our event, which was about 8 months later, he had 12 million followers on TikTok and was charging an average of $75,000 to do any corporate events. And it was crazy just to see how much his popularity sprung up just from being consistent on TikTok. And he would just post in his crowd work, wasn't doing anything fancy with it, but it just was like crowd work, and it was consistent, like pretty much nonstop. And that platform changed his life. He's doing movies now. Like he did a video recently with like Ashton Kutcher and a bunch of these famous people. He's getting invited to all these things. And just to see how he was able to use that platform to completely change his life. I remember I was talking to him, and he was like, last year I made 55,000. This year I'm set to make like 5 million or something like that. And I was like, that 1 year to go from 55,000 to 1 million or 5 million in income is pretty insane just on the back of TikTok. So the reason I want to say that is for all of our listeners, so you guys can see how powerful this platform is. You don't need to be Matt Rife. Like you've shown that you can do this in the martial arts world and do it successfully. And I appreciate all of the knowledge that you dropped for our listeners today. I think they have a leg up now on TikTok, and I encourage all you guys listening to go follow Matt, hit him up for advice. And with your coaching program, do you mind talking about that a little bit and just sort of how you work with business owners?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so basically, I've got a completely free Facebook group if you want to join that. So if you connect with me over on Facebook and find me, I can link you up to that. That's absolutely fine. So we talk about stuff in there, completely free, doesn't cost a thing. If you want to move into paid services, then I do consulting. So I do a number of different programs. So I tend to do programs over a course of time, because I'm going to use the word that is the bane of any kind of mentor, coach, leader, whatever, and that is accountability. So what I found is that if I sit you in a room, if I sit you down, and if I give you all of that gold and I give my life to you for a few hours, a month from now, when I say to you, what have you done? They go, I haven't quite got around to it. I've been a bit busy. And what did I waste my time on? Right. So what I tend to do is I tend to work over a period of time with people, and that way then we've got that accountability, and week on week I can say, where are you? What are you doing? What's working well? What's not working? You haven't done that. Here's a metaphorical kick up the bum. Go and do it. And excuse me. And so that's one of the main ways that I work.
Yeah, I think that's needed, honestly, with all coaching. That you know this probably from coaching as well as I do, that you get those clients that are just like massive implementers and you barely need to check in with, and they just kick ass on their own and follow the plan. But that's like the 1%. Most of them are the people that like you got to continually kick in the butt and check in with and make sure they're doing everything they're supposed to. And Matt, if you're okay with it, would you be okay with us putting the free group link in the show notes so that way anyone can go and join?
Do.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. Any other thing that you feel is relevant to share with our audience?
Yeah, just very quickly, I'd just like to say, because you talked about such big numbers there just before we finished, it's worth noting that there are people making substantial differences to their lives and substantial incomes on 500, 1,000 people. You don't need a massive amount of following. You just need the right type of people. That
makes sense. It makes total sense. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. I don't know what time it is in UK right now, but I appreciate you linking up with us and joining on the show, and we hope to see more of you in the future.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
We're unstoppable. To the top, we about to go. That CEO, I need to know the impact we about to grow. Competition comical. Straight A1, we on the road. Money focus for the goal. Tell them what they need to know. We unstoppable.